Return for a moment to 1972, from the first flight of McDonnell Douglas F-15 fighter jet to the beginning of one of the biggest political scandals in American history. Let's revisit some of the highlights of your graduation year, a tumultuous time of social change both across the globe and in the U.S. The HP 35 was Hewlett-Packard's first pocket calculator and the world's first scientific pocket calculator, one with trigonometric and exponential functions. It introduced at a price of $395. The device would cost $2,719 today. The Dallas Cowboys won their first Super Bowl, defeating the Miami Dolphins 24-3 in Super Bowl VI, played in New Orleans' Tulane Stadium. The game kicked off with an air temperature of 39 degrees Fahrenheit, with a halftime tribute to Louis Armstrong that featured Ella Fitzgerald, Al Hirt, Carol Channing, and the U.S. Marine Corps drill team. On February 17th, Volkswagen Beetle sales exceeded those of the Ford Model T when the 15,007,034th Beetle was produced. The German-designed rear-engine Beetle was destined to be the people's car, as was the Model T. The Soviet unmanned spaceship Luna 20 landed on the Moon and returned to Earth at 6,000 miles an hour with 1.94 ounces of lunar soil that was shared with French and American scientists. Luna 20 was one of 3 robotic Soviet lunar sample return missions that competed with the U.S. Apollo missions, where astronauts walked on the Moon to collect samples. Launched on March 2nd, NASA's Pioneer 10 was the first spacecraft to travel through the asteroid belt and the first to obtain close-up images of Jupiter. Famed as the most remote object ever made by man through most of its 30-year mission, Pioneer 10 is now over 8 billion miles away. Its mission was considered a spectacular success. A new era of women's magazine publishing began when Burt Reynolds posed wearing nothing but a bearskin rug for the centerfold for Cosmopolitan's April 1972 issue. In 1972, the average cost of a new house was $27,600, and the average annual income was $11,859. Gas costs rose to 55 cents a gallon, and you could mail a letter for less than a dime. Tuition at Harvard University, now more than $50,000 a year, was $2,800. The 92nd U.S. Congress voted to send the proposed Equal Rights Amendment to the states for ratification. But the amendment soon faced numerous legal and political hurdles, and 5 decades later, it has yet to be added to the U.S. Constitution. The 4th anniversary of the Broadway musical Hair was celebrated with a free concert at a Central Park bandshell, followed by dinner at the Four Seasons. There, 13 Black Panther protesters and the show's co-author, Jim Rado, were arrested for disturbing the peace and for using marijuana. You could hardly wait to tune in, week after week, to your favorite TV sitcoms, shows that replace the rural emphasis of Mayberry RFD and the Beverly Hillbillies with more socially conscious programming. Some 1972 favorites were All in the Family, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, Maude, and Sanford and Son. The U.S. and the Soviet Union joined some 70 nations in signing the Biological Weapons Convention, an agreement to ban biological warfare. It was the first multilateral disarmament treaty banning an entire category of weapons of mass destruction. The U.S. continued to participate in combat, assisting the South Vietnamese, while Paris negotiators tried to hammer out a peace agreement and a withdrawal strategy for the U.S. On March 30th, North Vietnam launched the Easter Offensive, a massive invasion of South Vietnam. This led to a large increase in U.S. air power and airstrikes to defend South Vietnam and a resumption of bombing of North Vietnam. Moviegoers load up on popcorn to enjoy top-grossing movies of 1972: The Godfather, Deliverance, The Poseidon Adventure, and What's Up, Doc? Fritz the Cat was launched as the first American animated film to receive an X rating. The first Boston Marathon in which women were officially allowed to compete was on April 17, 1972. The 6 women who entered the race protested the women's 10-minute head start requirement. When it was time for the race, the gun sounded, the women sat down, and the posters went up. After 10 minutes, the women got up and started the race alongside the male competitors. The American twin-engine all-weather tactical fighter jet designed by McDonnell Douglas, now part of Boeing, first flew in July of 1972. It is among the most successful of modern fighter aircrafts, with over 100 victories and no losses in aerial combat. Soviet President Leonid Brezhnev and U.S. President Richard Nixon signed the first Strategic Arms Limitation Talks agreements in 1972. Intended to restrain the arms race in strategic ballistic missiles, they were the most far-reaching attempts ever to control nuclear weapons. The White House plumbers were arrested at 2:30 a.m. on June 17th while burglarizing and planting surveillance bugs in the Democratic National Committee offices at the Watergate building complex. The arrest exposed one of the greatest political scandals in American history. Originally introduced as an unflavored chip in 1964, Doritos launched its innovative nacho cheese-flavored snack food in 1972 and would become the most popular Dorito chip. Billboard's top singles include songs by America, Al Green, Don McLean, Nielsen, and Neil Young. 11 Israeli athletes at the 1972 Summer Olympics in Munich are murdered after 8 members of the Arab terrorist group Black September invade the Olympic Village. 5 guerrillas and 1 policeman are also killed in a failed hostage rescue. The 69th edition of the MLB's World Series was a best-of-7 playoff between the AL champion Oakland Athletics and the NL champion Cincinnati Reds. Oakland won in 7 games, making it their first championship since 1930. The first U.S. Libertarian Party National Convention was held in Denver, Colorado. An Airbus A300 prototype, the first twin-engine wide-body airliner, flew in October. Built by Airbus Industrie in a French and German collaboration, the project sought to design an aircraft that was smaller, lighter, and more economical than its 3-engine American rivals, the McDonnell Douglas DC-10 and the Lockheed L-1011 TriStar. Atari Incorporated released the first generation of video game consoles with their seminal version of Pong, the first game to achieve commercial success. An arcade version quickly followed. Within the context of Coordinated Universal Time, leap year 1972 was the longest year ever, as 2 leap seconds were added during this 366-day year, an event not since repeated. Now that we've revisited some of the global milestones of 1972, let's look back at campus life 50 years ago. Reflecting a myriad of early 70s social changes, many UMR students were academically inspired by a focus on individualism and the responsibility of accomplishment. Merle Baker enters his 8th year as UMR's chancellor. Despite a national downturn in engineering employment opportunities that similarly affected enrollment, in 1972, UMR remained the second largest producer of engineering graduates in the nation. Still, many graduates struggled with finding employment. Earlier in 1970, the College of Arts and Sciences was organized, combining the School of Science and Division of Liberal Arts. UMR's annual Industry Day in September introduced regional industries and their products to UMR students, with 46 companies from Missouri and Illinois in attendance. Today, over 250 companies participate, virtually and in person, in S&T's Career Fair. October 2nd marked the start of the annual All-School Mixer, when 120 women from Cotty College were welcomed to UMR. The fun began with an afternoon featuring the band Comic Book Society, followed by an evening performance by Crow, and a final dance held in the ballroom featuring Common Ground. UMR researchers in Noble Gases looked at moon samples from recent Apollo missions for clues about the universe. NASA selected Dr. O.K. Manuel, Associate Professor of Chemistry, as a principal investigator for the project and shipped moon rocks to campus for investigation. University Day brings prospective students and their parents to campus for tours, special exhibitions, and demonstrations of minor ingenuity. A special NASA exhibit featuring moon rock brought back to Earth by the Apollo 12 crew highlighted the day. Twice in the year, the Student Union Board's Hospitality Committee presented fashion and variety shows featuring both men's and women's fashions and short skirts. While radio network KMSM-FM struggled to stay student-operated, it also successfully sponsored the first KMSM Greater Rolla and Vicinity Rock and Roll Revival and Grease Ball. Highlights of the evening included dance contests, free photographs of the station's disc jockeys, and the crowning of Peggy Durst as Queen of the Grease Ball 1971. Homecoming brought another excuse to close your books, highlighted by the appearance of Chase on Friday evening. The Miners defeated Northwest Missouri State on the football field, and Maureen Daly was crowned Homecoming Queen. Senator Theodore McNeil, the first African American to serve in the Missouri Senate, dedicated UMR's Humanities Social Sciences building at Homecoming. McNeil helped pass landmark civil rights legislation and served as curator of the University of Missouri, president of the St. Louis Police Board, and was Washington University's first African American non-alumnus trustee. November 23, 1971, marked the 100th anniversary of the opening of the Missouri School of Mines and Metallurgy, later named the University of Missouri Rolla. Dr. Elmer Ellis, President Emeritus of the University of Missouri, spoke at the reenactment event, noting that professionally trained leaders should know, quote, substantial amounts about society and its culture. The Student Union Board and its 150 committee members fulfilled most of the cultural and recreational needs of UMR students. Among the many artists they brought to campus, the popular One and Only Singers performed songs taken from such recording artists as Carole King, Three Dog Night, Fifth Dimension, The Carpenters, and Elton John. The campus researched the failure of mine tunnel roofs under the direction of Nolan Owenbaugh, Chair of Mining, Petroleum, and Geological Engineering. The U.S. Bureau of Mines supplied $120,000 in research support, equivalent to $800,000 today. The St. Pat's Board organized and planned another unforgettable party weekend replete with hats, buttons, garters, and sweatshirts sold for fundraising, numerous campus activities for students, the traditional Pine Street Parade, and the knighting ceremony when the Queen of Love and Beauty, Nancy Benesch, is crowned. Miss Missouri Janet Potter and Missouri Secretary of State James C. Kirkpatrick attended the revelry, topped off with a concert by John Denver. Themed Famous Voyages, the parade included Beta Sigma Psi's first place float, Lindbergh's Flight, marching units and non-float entries, St. Pat on his manure spreader, and the Queen's float built by Pi Kappa Alpha. Midway through the parade, Delta Sigma Phi's float entry unexpectedly burst into flames. Fraternities and sororities celebrated Greek Week with the traditional carnival at Lions Club Park, highlighted by Greek games at Elysian Fields. The games ranged from hard-fought chariot races for the men to a delicate limbo competition for the women. Saturday night was capped off with a performance by Fanny, one of the first all-female rock bands. As part of its mall beautification plan, in early 1972, the UMR Facilities Planning Committee specified the construction of a circular concrete bandstand, 60 inches in diameter and located near the Student Union Building. By December, the structure, which began to be called the Puck, was born. Missouri Governor Walter Hearns lectured at UMR, pointing out the successes and failures of Missouri's ecological legislation. He emphasized that engineers must be aware of the social and political aspects of technological projects to solve ecological problems of the future. UMR's 99th commencement exercises were held May 14th in the Multipurpose Building, conferring 489 bachelor's degrees, 140 master's degrees, and 26 doctoral degrees. Chancellor Baker recognized UMR's 20,000th graduate, Ronald G. Faust, who received a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. 1972's December commencement added 312 more graduates with bachelor's degrees, 110 with master's degrees, and 19 doctoral degrees. That's quite a total class. Congratulations to our golden alumni on the 50th anniversary of your graduation. May you keep making memories for many years to come.